I'm here with Nick Ioannou, who is the head of IT at IG Partnerships, and he has also authored 5 books on IT security. So we're going to start talking a little bit about you first off. So what inspired you to write your first book about security?
It was actually talking to my boss's sons who kept getting viruses. And I don't know if you've ever removed a virus off a machine. It takes a hell of a long time. It's like literally 6 hours work. It's like asking someone to come around and decorate your bedroom. There's a lot involved. It's a lot easier to help them not get infected in the first place.
Okay.
So it's purely selfish reasons.
And you were recently ITSM's Author of the Month. So what book was that for? Is it for all of them?
No, it's the one I wrote just for them, Practical Guide to Cybersecurity for Small Businesses. So the remit was 12,000 words only to keep it short and sweet and full of practical advice. So you're not just reading chapter after chapter, it's all stuff that you can just do and enact, even without a budget.
Okay. And obviously with GDPR coming in this year, we've heard a lot about small businesses and how they need to start taking security and data protection more seriously. So it sounds like your book fits quite well with that trend. Is there anything in particular that you think small businesses need to do more of?
It's take a step back and look at what you have and actually work out what you can get rid of that's just causing you problems. Thinking something in the corner that you cost a lot of money a long time ago may be a risk. So, do you really need it? So whatever you can clear out, same with your databases, what information are you storing? Chances are you're sitting on a lot of stuff you don't need.
Now, I was looking at your career history. So you started in development and then moved into support and then up into the head of IT role where you're at now. What's come through from that's made you so passionate about security?
Well, after waiting for 24 years for Microsoft to get it right, and they haven't yet, it's just that eternal hope that just how good things are now. We have the equivalent of a $15 million computer in our pockets. When I was a teenager, the Cray 2 supercomputer that rendered The Last Starfighter was just a dream if someone told me I could have that in my pocket 3 years ago as an iPhone 5. So it's amazing what the technology can do. And I studied product design, so I've always had that way of thinking. And security, because no one can do it for you. It's something you have to do. You can't rely on the vendors of what comes with your machines. It's just not there.
And it sounds like you're quite passionate about technology alongside security. You also describe yourself as an early adopter of cloud. So how?
Yeah, well, in the construction world, we've been using hosted systems. I paid for my first one in 2003 for a big Aldi distribution center project, to basically a glorified filing cabinet on the internet that cost thousands per month. Now we can get the same for a couple of hundred a month or less. So there's just no way to share thousands and thousands of files, with 50 different companies unless it's in a cloud service. Trying to do it in-house back when ADSL was still in its early days just wasn't feasible.
And that is early. Some companies are only just implementing those sort of things now. So how well do you think they're doing, companies that you're seeing are doing security for their cloud products?
Well, as in the services we use or our own to protect?
Both.
Well, the cloud security has always been pretty good because it removed a whole load of problems. Because it wasn't your problem. It wasn't a box in the corner that you had to rely on and keep secure. No small business is going to invest in an underground bunker somewhere or a data center. It's just too expensive. So the certain levels of security were just immediately much higher. And also things like replication and into different locations that the cloud services instantly gave you. So we couldn't have our data in 2 geographic places without paying a lot of money. So in certain ways, the security was massively increased. and then it just all boils down to a username and password, where the security in effect gets lowered because now anyone can access it from anywhere, and that's where the focus has to be on that weak link, the username and password.
And what are your company doing around security to help mitigate some of those risks?
I've got 10 different products that I use for a layered security solution to cover all different gaps. Right now, testing and looking at two-factor verification, trying to find a solution that doesn't get in the way. I think I've got one. Because it's a bit like having 8 locks on your front door. Very secure, pain in the neck when you forget something and have to go back in. So it's finding security that doesn't cause more problems than it solves.
Okay. Now, we mentioned already that GDPR's coming this year, and we're here at the Data Protection World Forum. So what do you think has been achieved by that coming in already in the last few months?
It's made us look at our obligations, the whole reporting thing. We know that if something happens, there's help now, because we're all part of an ecosystem. We all have suppliers, we all have customers. Everyone's in the same boat. And the whole trying to hide behind things and hope it goes away, those days hopefully are over now. And it's made us look at what we have. And like I say, get rid of the excess and decide actually what are the risks. It's given me a new chance to talk to the board about risks and mitigate those risks.
And sort of clearing out some of that old data, some of that old technology, is that something that you implemented at the current role?
It's constantly happening. I'm cloud first where feasible. So if every new service I sign up to, I don't want a box in the corner. So I'm forever throwing something out every year. The server rack looks bleaker and bleaker, and hopefully runs less hot as a result.
Yeah. Do you think companies are now taking data protection seriously?
The honest answer is many no, because many don't even know what they've got. So they think, oh, well, yes, we're taking data protection seriously, but if you don't actually know what you have, or where the risks are, so you end up having a breach. We've seen so many breaches over the past 3 months of big names that, they've all got ISO 27001 security credentials. They've invested in heavy top-notch systems to protect them, and yet, we've all suffered. So it's not just about how much you spend, it's how you spend it, and actually look at it seriously and look at all the risks. And a lot of companies, big and small, aren't taking it seriously because they've got a rubber stamp from some certification, so they think they're covered when they're not.
Companies not knowing what data they have is quite a big theme that we hear people talking about. Are there any tips that you've got maybe for smaller businesses to help them understand what they've got and where?
Yeah, it's about transparency with your staff. If they're using cloud services like Dropbox without you knowing, it's worth having a conversation and pay for the proper versions, the premium versions that are backed up, that you do have an audit trail. There's so much in the way of shadow IT in small businesses, where people are just trying to do their job with time limits and constraints and budgets, and they end up introducing data risks as a result. And it's not just big, small companies, it's large firms as well. So being transparent and actually saying, okay, what do you need to get on with your job, and actually talking to your colleagues can make a big difference.
So awareness for staff is also a big theme, and I think the breaches that go out in the press pretty much every week, every day, really help with that. Do you think that staff are a little bit fatigued with hearing about security risks?
Yeah, there is alert fatigue. We keep hearing it, but the problem still is people. When they're stressed, when they're panicking, when they're under time pressures, they don't think, and that's when the criminals using psychological techniques, that's when they get them to click on the links or do what they want them to do without realizing. There's also the element of greed. It's it's psychology. The criminals know what they're doing. And education is one of the best tools, and building trust. I won't phish my own staff. I trust them, and I'm constantly educating them and asking them to forward stuff that punches through the filters, rather than me try and trick them and then see who's done well and who hasn't.
Yeah, that's been in the news a lot recently, hasn't it? About companies doing that, and it actually breaking down that trust they have with their IT department and with their employer.
Well, yeah, if you don't trust your IT department, you've introduced so many problems, and I've seen it in so many firms, where people think, well, if I ask the IT department, they're going to say no. So I'm just going to go and do it anyway because I have a company credit card and I need to get this deadline out of the way. So trust is one of the most key elements to try and build and get right. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's involved a lot of talking and listening. More important is the listening.
And for employees or the public in general, they've heard a lot this year. Do you think the breaches that they're hearing about in the news, things like the Cambridge Analytica issue or GDPR, has had a bigger impact for IT departments, for employees, customers?
Well, they hear about the GDPR fines, but look, I got compromised by BA.
Oh, okay.
I can list all the different breaches I've been involved in. As a LinkedIn user, as an Adobe user, luckily Tesco Bank didn't affect me. There's just so many, and knowing that there's substantial fines, I think the public know, look, they have to take it seriously. They can't just keep fobbing us off and be slapdash.
There's also been a number of really large acquisitions in the security industry this year. So obviously just this week, Blackberry have bought Silence. Do you think that's going to have a positive impact on data protection and security in general?
I don't see it having a negative effect. Companies keep buying companies all the time. There can be a few hiccups. There's security solutions that I really wanted, and then they got bought up by a massive firm and went out of my budget as a result, or just got pulled from the market. So it happens all the time. Silence being part of Blackberry, probably a good thing in the long run, considering Blackberry is looking at automated cars. I'd rather know that my self-driving car has some really good security behind it.
Now, just before we finish up, we're obviously coming to the end of the year. Do you have any predictions that you think will come through as we go into 2019?
Well, the criminals are using machine learning and AI techniques now. The spam and the targeted phishes that we're going to get are going to be really hard to spot over time. They'll glean information from social media, they'll personalize it, and it'll all happen in a split second because the criminals have that much money behind them, and they can pay for everything we can pay for. And so it'll be a war of machine learning security versus machine learning attack. And the humans involved are going to suffer for a while.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for
you.
being my first interview today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event.